Story 1. The vanishing penthouse in Manhattan. He asked me to sit, gesturing toward the velvet armchair across from him. I obeyed, trying to focus on my breathing. That's what my therapist says. Breathe through the anxiety, not around it. But the city view behind him made it hard to concentrate. The lights weren't steady. They pulsed, glitched, almost like a screen buffering at low resolution. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. Times Square shouldn't look digitized. He noticed my stare, tilted his head, and said, flatly, "They don't like being looked at directly." I laughed again, weaker this time. "Who's they?" I asked, half teasing, half hoping for some dumb joke to break the tension. But he didn't answer, just turned back to the glass. Then I noticed the coffee table had moved, subtly, just a few inches to the left. I hadn't seen or heard anything shift, but I was sure it had. I get fixated sometimes, hyper-aware. My therapist calls it, not paranoid, just sensitive. I stood up slowly, pretending to stretch, and brushed my hand across the table's edge. It was warm, not from sunlight, from something else. My heart thumped against my ribs, more out of confusion than fear. The man, if that's what he was, remained perfectly still, too still. His hand hadn't moved since I'd walked in, resting over a crystal tumbler, half full of something amber. I focused on it, trying to anchor myself, but the glass began to flicker. I swear it shimmered like a mirage, as though it was both full and empty at once. My breath caught. He turned again, slowly, and said, "Don't believe everything your senses tell you. They're compromised. Compromised." I echoed, finally sitting again. The armchair moaned under me, as if it disliked the pressure. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, trying not to lose composure. He didn't elaborate. Instead, he opened a slim drawer beneath the table and pulled out a photo. Black and white, blurred and old. It showed a street corner with shadowy figures scattered like chess pieces. That was taken in 1974, he said. They weren't meant to be photographed, but sometimes the veil slips. I leaned closer to the photo. One figure at the edge wore a long coat, but its proportions fell off. Limbs slightly too long, and tilted at an unnatural angle. "You see it, don't you?" he whispered. I hesitated, then nodded. The lights behind him dimmed, as though the room responded to my admission. The air smelled faintly metallic, like blood on cold steel. My stomach turned. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. The glass in his hand pulsed again, synchronizing with the throb in my temples. "Because you've already seen them," he said. "You just don't remember." That sentence slammed into me harder than I expected. Memories flashed, a childhood fever, a static-laced dream, silhouettes in the corner of my bedroom. My body reacted before my brain caught up. I stood, too quickly, and knocked the crystal tumbler over. The liquid didn't spill. It hovered, for a moment, then vanished. I looked at him, mouth open, and he only smiled. "They're watching this too." He stood up. His movements were deliberate, as if gravity bent differently for him. The cityscape outside continued its strange flickering, now resembling old VHS static. He stepped toward the wall and pressed his palm flat against the glass. It didn't reflect him. It absorbed him, like his image sank a few inches in. "You think this is the real world," he said. "It's the rehearsal." My jaw clenched, involuntarily. I felt like I was falling, but I hadn't moved. The room's edges stretched, subtly, like melting wax. "You're not the first," he added, voice crackling like a broken speaker. "But you're the first to stay sane this long." He turned to face me again, and for a split second, his features rearranged. His nose blinked, his eyes smiled, his mouth wept. It reassembled in time with my panic. I stumbled back, hard, hammering in my throat, and reached for the doorknob. It wasn't there anymore. Just blank wood. "They don't let go," he said softly. "Once you've seen through, then everything stopped. The lights, the hum of distant traffic. Even my thoughts fell silent." He approached, and though his feet touched the floor, they made no sound. He extended his hand. I didn't take it. Instinct screamed at me not to. But he didn't mind. "You'll walk through on your own," he said. They always do. Fear just decorates the threshold. The air around him shimmered like heat rising from asphalt. Reality twisted at the edges. A film reel stuttering mid-frame. I tried to speak, but my mouth felt sealed. No words, only a vibration. In my chest, like something unspoken echoing back at me. He smiled with all his parts again, and the city outside blinked one final time. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was back in my apartment, alone, no glass, no photo, no memory of getting home. But a note was on the table, just 5 words. Scrawled in graphite, "They remember that you remember, story 2, the silent client in." The French quarter of the tape began with static, not the harmless fuzz of an old recording, but a jagged, whispering pulse that felt intentional. Something inside the noise was listening, mimicking. When the voice finally emerged, it wasn't mine. Although it knew my cadence, it spoke of dolls, buried doors, and things I swore I'd never tell another living soul. They say sound decays over time, but this tape grew stronger with each play. The house began responding to it, floors buckling, windows sweating, light bulbs weeping amber fluid. I unplugged the player. I burned it, still, every night. It returned to my bedside table, rewound and waiting. I stopped sleeping. The rooms rearranged themselves when I blinked. My reflection in mirrors refused to sink. Outside, the sun turned gray and hung too low, as if eavesdropping. The tape had changed me, or maybe revealed what had always been underneath. I traced the origins of the voice to a forgotten storage facility to towns over. Inside was a single corridor, endless and wet, lined with dolls whose stitched eyes followed movement but not light. I walked for hours, but the corridor never ended. The tape began playing from within my chest. When I screamed, the sound came out backward. I was a channel now, not a person. The walls pulsed with memories I didn't own. Birthdays that never happened, screams in wallpaper. The sensation of drowning in dry air. I understood then that the tape hadn't chosen me randomly. Back home, every photograph featured someone I didn't recognize, always at the edge of the frame, half smiling. The voice on the tape said her name was Mother, but not mine. I opened the fridge and found my childhood toys submerged in ice. The house reeked of old perfume and soil. The telephone's silence finally broke with a single ring that reverberated through the house like a church bell marking the dead. When I answered, there was no voice, only a faint scratching, like fingernails grazing wood. I asked who was there, demanded answers, but the line dissolved into static and then laughter. Not human laughter, something submerged, wet, gurgling. That sound clung to me throughout the night, echoing in every faucet drip and creak of the floorboards. The dolls, no longer scattered, had arranged themselves in a perfect circle facing the basement door, which had begun to throb as though something behind it had a pulse. I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway and listened to the breathing I couldn't convince myself was my own. I finally opened the basement door. It was not a room. It was a void, a place unmade, smelling of childhood fears and wet earth. Inside, something moved that had too many limbs and none at all. It whispered in voices that knew my sins, and it beckoned without sound. I stepped down. I had no choice. The last thing I remember is the dolls turning their heads in unison. Now, I speak from within the static, within the scratching, from behind every faucet drip. I am the hum between stations, the shadow you mistake for your own. You found this tape, but it's not the end. It's the invitation. Play it again, and let me in. Story 3. The watcher on Venice Beach. I should have canceled the booking when she said, "Make sure the blinds stay open." I'm not new to Venice Beach, and when a client gets weird about the ocean view, it usually means they want to be seen, either by neighbors, strangers, or something darker. But hey, I'm not the cautious type. She paid in advance. double my rate, and the condo was way too nice to walk away from. Polished wood floors, glass walls, the Pacific melting into a sheet of silver. She answered the door in silk, pale, trembling, and with that kind of fragility that makes you want to touch, just to see if she breaks. She didn't look me in the eye, not once. Instead, she drifted from room to room like she didn't live there, like she wasn't sure where the bathroom was. At one point, she paused by the balcony and whispered, "He watches the waves at sunset. He likes when I'm not alone." I thought it was code for some kink, you know, like she wanted to be dominated with an audience. I laughed it off. But then, from the edge of the window, I caught a glimpse of something that shouldn't have been there. A figure, still, face pointed straight up at us, not moving, not blinking. I stared at that figure longer than I should have. Sunlight shifted, the window glare flared, and still, it didn't move, just black clothes. A pale face, eyes lost in shadow, fixed right on us. She didn't flinch. Just poured herself a drink with trembling hands, splashing vodka on the marble counter like she wasn't used to holding anything. When I pointed it out, she said, "Sometimes he's there, sometimes not." I asked who, but she turned away, like I'd interrupted something fragile in her thoughts. We ended up on the couch, close enough to feel heat. Her skin was cold, though, bare. Legs curled under her, eyes darting to the window and back. She leaned in, whispered, "I can't keep him out when I'm alone, but with you here, maybe he won't come in." I brushed her hair off her shoulder, unsure if this was foreplay or a cry for help. She kissed me, desperate, shaky, like someone starving for contact. And for a moment, I forgot about the figure, about the ocean, about how the condo suddenly fell to quiet. Afterward, she curled up against me, eyes wide open, unfocused, like she was watching something I couldn't see. The condo had this eerie stillness, broken only by distant waves and the occasional creak from the hallway. I checked the window. Again, the boardwalk was nearly empty now. Sunset had soaked everything in orange and pink, but the figure, still there. A little closer, no face, just presence. I grabbed my phone to snap a photo, but the screen wouldn't load. Black, then static, then nothing. I turned to show her, but she was already standing. She walked into the hallway like she was sleepwalking. The light flickered overhead, casting her shadow sideways, long, unnatural. I followed, calling her name, but my voice felt swallowed by the walls. She stopped at a door I hadn't noticed before, brushed her fingers over the knob, and whispered, "He left something for you." My skin tightened. Something primal told me not to open it, but like I said, I break rules. I grabbed the knob. Inside the room, nothing, no furniture, no lights, just pale walls and a faint smell. Sweet, metallic, almost rotten. The air felt heavier, like stepping into someone's breath. I backed out slowly. She stood behind me, eyes glassy, murmuring, "You let him in." That's when I noticed the hallway. Brighter than before, too bright, but the lights weren't on. Something had changed. I turned toward the living room and froze. He was inside, standing just behind the window, exactly where she'd been earlier. Same posture, same stillness. But I knew it wasn't her. His form flickered at the edges, like static trying to hold shape. And his eyes, finally visible. They weren't eyes at all, just deep voids, pulling light inward. I grabbed her wrist, tried to move, but she was rooted, whispering things I couldn't understand, like lines from someone else's memory. That's when the condo started to feel like a mirror, like we were reflections trapped in someone else's view. I dragged her into the bedroom, slammed the door shut, but there was no lock, just silence and a slow hum, like electricity crawling through the walls. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just stood there, arms limp, pupils dilated. I pulled back the curtains. No boardwalk, no waves, just black. No reflection, no light, like we were suspended in someone else's nightmare. I turned to her and shouted, "What the hell is going on?" She blinked once and whispered, "He likes when they ask." Something slammed against the bedroom door, not loud, more like a thud, rhythmic, calculated. I backed away. My phone was dead, her phone missing. I asked again who he was, what this was, but she just smiled, too long, like a smile held for a photo that never finishes. The door didn't open, but the knob turned once, twice, paused. I held my breath. It stopped. I pulled her away from the door, but she moved like water, slow, ungraspable. Her body leaned into mine as if gravity had shifted sideways. Her breath brushed my neck. Shaky and cold, she whispered, "You're not supposed to see him like this." And I swear, I felt something behind me. I didn't turn, not right away, but the mirror on the dresser did. It caught a sliver of something tall, not touching the ground, just hovering, arms too long, head tilted, watching. The reflection blinked, only the reflection. I spun around, nothing, empty space. But the mirror still showed him, not just behind me, inside me. Like he'd replaced something I didn't notice was missing. I shattered the glass with my elbow. She screamed once, not out of fear, out of loss, like I'd ruined something sacred. That's when I saw the window behind her. It was open, wide, and the ocean wasn't there anymore. I tried to leave, grabbed my bag, headed for the door, but the hallway stretched, longer than before. The condo layout had changed. Walls where windows used to be, rooms rearranged like a cruel joke. I opened what should have been the front door and found myself looking into the same bedroom. Same broken mirror, same open window. She stood inside already, smiling. "He likes mazes," she said softly. "They keep you in longer." I screamed at her, told her none of this was real, that I wasn't crazy. But my voice sounded strange, like it wasn't mine. I checked my reflection again, only it didn't mimic me anymore. He blinked before I did, tilted his head when mine stayed still. My body moved, but the mirror didn't follow. And then he smiled. That smile, the one she gave me earlier. I left. I think I did. At some point, I felt the hallway shrink tighten, and then it spat me out into the street. Early morning mist. Boardwalk empty. No condo behind me. Just an alley. I checked my phone. Full battery. All texts normal. But one app stood out. One I've never downloaded. Just a black icon with no name. When I tapped it, it opened the mirror. The same mirror from the room. And he was there smiling. Still watching. No matter how far I go. No matter who I'm with. I don't care if you believe me. But if you've ever seen him, if your reflection blinked without you, please tell me what to do. Story 4. The endless drive in Chicago. I've had some weird nights on the job. Guys who want to be called sir. Guys who don't want to be touched. Guys who just want to cry. So when I met him, press suit, cologne like crushed violets, no smile, I figured he was just another lonely executive with a twisted bedtime routine. He didn't want the hotel. He wanted a drive, said, just cruise the shoreline. I'll pay triple, fine by me. Lakeshore Drive at midnight, romantic enough. Chicago looked slick under the drizzle. His voice was quiet to quiet. I remember thinking, he doesn't blink much. He sat in the back, didn't lean forward, didn't speak after that, just stared out the window like he was watching something follow us. After half an hour, I caught myself glancing at him through the rear view, not to make small talk, just to check he was still normal. But then something didn't sit right. The same buildings kept showing up, the same trees, the same digital billboard for some Broadway show, every 20 blocks. I thought, are we looping? But I shook it off. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the city just felt too big and too small at the same time. I reached for the volume dial. Have to kill the silence. Have to reset my nerves. Old school R&B filled the car. Soft and low. He didn't react. Just kept looking out, his jaw moving. For a moment, I watched him, not through the mirror, but directly. His hands were clasped so tight I could see the white of his knuckles, but it was his eyes that made my stomach dip. Unblinking, glossy, not focused on the road, or even anything outside. Like he was watching something happen in his head. I was about to ask if he was okay when he finally spoke. Keep going. We're not there yet. That's when I saw the other planetarium again. Same angle, same fog curling off the lake, same flickering street lamp near the entrance. I slowed down, glancing at the dashboard clock. 1:38 a.m. We passed the place 2 hours ago. I turned, finally breaking the silent game. Hey, something's off. We've been here already. He didn't move, didn't answer. But in the mirror, his reflection did. The face looking back at me had a small, deliberate smile. The kind that people force when pretending to be normal, only it wasn't his mouth that smiled. It was his eyes. I hit the brakes, not hard, just enough to pull us into a turnout near the water. But the moment my foot touched the pedal, the car bucked forward instead. Like something took control. The RPM jumped, the speed climbed. I wasn't pressing anything. My heart started thudding. All right, man, what the hell is going on? I asked, louder now. No answer. I glanced at the rear view again. His face was wrong, lips still, but something beneath the skin, shifting. The kind of warping you'd expect if a face tried to wear itself backwards. I don't know how else to say it. His reflection wasn't playing by the same rules. I tried the door handle, locked. Tried mine, also locked. I reached for my phone to call someone, anyone, but the screen was just black, not off, just black, like it had been swallowed. Outside, the lake glinted unnaturally, like the light wasn't bending right anymore. I swear I saw the same jogger pass us twice. Same neon shorts, same limp in the left leg, but no one else. No traffic, no street sweepers, no cop cars, just me. This thing in the back seat, and a city folding in on itself. When I looked at the mirror again, he whispered, "We're almost home." I started talking, not to him, but to myself. Okay, maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I dozed off. My voice sounded thinner than usual, like it was crawling up my throat instead of coming out strong. I touched my own face, pinched my arm. Nothing, just cold skin and a heartbeat, trying to punch through my ribs. That's when I noticed the mirror again. I hadn't moved it, but his reflection was closer. His real body hadn't shifted an inch. Still sitting back, silent, but in the mirror, his face hovered just over my shoulder. Too close, too still. I reached up to tilt the mirror away. It didn't budge. I pushed harder. The mirror held like it was fused to bone. The music turned to static, just a low, pulsing hiss, like something breathing through wires. That's when he spoke again. "Don't fight it. You were chosen for your willingness." My mouth went dry. I used to joke about being a ride or die kind of guy, but this wasn't the kind of ride I signed up for. I wanted to ask him what he meant, or what this was, but somehow, I was afraid of what might happen if he answered. I finally screamed, not words, just sound, raw, scraping panic, and still, the car didn't slow. The skyline began to bend in on itself, buildings curving at impossible angles, lights pulsing like heartbeats. I saw the same diner for times, but each time the sign changed, open, closed, forgotten, almost. I don't know what almost meant, but it felt like a threat. His reflection smiled wider, too wide. Lips pulled to the edges of the glass, and he started to hum. Not a tune I recognized. Not even music, just a low, aching sound that felt hungry. Then the air changed, thick, heavy, like breathing through syrup. I tasted something metallic, not blood, something colder. My body started to feel, not mine, like the seat was growing around me, holding me there. And somewhere in my chest, I felt a pull, not a tug, not pain, just a slow unraveling, like I was being unwound from the inside. "We're close now," he said, but the words didn't come from behind me. They came from inside the car speakers, from the mirror, from my own mouth, maybe. I don't know. I just know I was disappearing, and the road never ended. Eventually, the car slowed. Not because I did anything. It just happened. We were no longer on Lakeshore Drive. The buildings were unfamiliar now. No lights, no names. Just endless windows, like eyes. And they were all looking down at us. He opened the door and stepped out. But the moment his feet hit the ground, his reflection remained, trapped in the rear view, grinning with that wrong mouth expression. I stayed frozen, breathing like I hadn't in hours. He turned to me, the real him, and simply said, "Thank you," then walked into one of the buildings. The mirror dimmed. The reflection smiled once more, then it disappeared. I drove off. I don't remember how I got home. I don't remember unlocking the door. But ever since, every time I pass by a mirror, I see something lag for half a second, like the reflection's trying to catch up or remember who it's supposed to be. I lock the mirror in my bathroom cabinet, tape around the edges. Still, some nights, I hear humming from inside, low, starving. If anyone's ever had a client like him, anyone who didn't blink, didn't breathe right, who gave directions that looped into madness, please, for the love of whatever's left in me, say something. I need to know I wasn't chosen alone. Story 5. The Forgotten Room in Beacon Hill. They say Beacon Hill is old money and older ghosts. But I only cared about the envelope on my dresser. $500 in advance. Chris bills and her name written in lipstick. She said Charles Street, top floor, brownstone. I didn't ask questions. I never do. This gig's about pleasure, not paranoia. I wore my best cologne, the one that lingers like a promise, and showed up just past 8. The rain had stopped, but the air was still damp. Her building looked like something out of a postcard. Ivy on brick, wrought iron railings, window panes that watched you back. She opened the door barefoot, silk robe, long fingers curled around a wine glass. Her smile was subtle, but not shy. It held something deliberate. "You're early," she said, though I wasn't. Her voice, warm like honey, wrapped around the hallway. She didn't bother with small talk. Just let me past antique furniture and dusty oil paintings, all humming with quiet wealth. Then she stopped at a bookshelf. With a soft push, it creaked open, revealing a narrow passage behind it. "My private space," she whispered, "where I keep the things that reflect who I really am." The passage was narrow, padded with burgundy wallpaper that smelled faintly of lavender and dust. I followed her in, each step muffled like the house was swallowing sound. At the end stood a small room, no windows, no lights except for 2 old sconces flickering weakly above a velvet chaise, and mirrors everywhere. Tall ones, wide ones, warped antique glass with gold-gilded frames. They leaned against every surface like spectators at a show. I noticed a chill, not from temperature, but from something else. Familiar unease, like walking into a place you've seen in dreams but shouldn't remember. She let her robe fall. Her skin caught the low light, casting curves that blurred at the edges, like her body was melting into shadow. "You don't have to pretend," she said, reclining gracefully on the chaise. "They see you for who you are." I stepped closer, letting the moment slow, the touch of velvet under my palm, the dry taste of wine from her lips. But as I glanced to my left, my breath caught. In one of the mirrors, I was still standing at the door, not moving, watching. I blinked hard, and it was gone. The reflection snapped back to normal. But something was off. Too still, too rehearsed. I tried to laugh it off. Just a trick of the glass, right? Some old mirrors distort angles. But the longer I lingered, the more things slipped. And another reflection. My hands weren't touching her. They were clenched behind my back. And another. She was gone entirely. And I stood alone, staring into the dark. I stepped back. The mirrors didn't follow. They kept showing scenes I hadn't lived yet, or maybe ones I had and forgotten. "Do they frighten you?" she asked, her voice suddenly cooler. I turned to her, and for a split second, her face flickered. Not visibly, more like a change in energy, a sharpness, like something watching through her. I looked around. No cameras, no tech, no logical source for what I was seeing. "My name's Ryan," I said, almost as a test. She smiled, distant. "Now, no, not tonight." Her tone scraped something in me. I stepped toward the door, the hidden one behind the bookshelf. But something tugged at my gut, a pressure. Like I shouldn't move, my reflection in the nearest mirror raised. A hand. I froze. She didn't. She stood, walked over slowly, and whispered into my ear. "They listen when you lie." I stepped back from the mirror slowly, making sure my actual body was the one moving, not just the one I saw reflected. The room felt tighter now, smaller. She returned to the chaise, curling her legs beneath her like nothing had changed. "They've missed you," she said, almost fondly. I didn't answer. I just scanned the mirrors again. In one, my shirt was unbuttoned. In another, I had blood on my cheek. I touched my face. Nothing. No cut. No smear. The reflections were fracturing. Timelines. Memories. I couldn't tell. But they were all me. All wrong. "I think I should go," I said firmly, already walking back toward the door. She didn't stop me. Just whispered, "They'll follow." The door didn't open. There was no handle from the side, just wooden silence. I looked back, and my heart dropped. In every mirror, the room was empty. I wasn't in them anymore. No woman, no chaise. Just a still frame like the mirrors had swallowed everything and left me behind. But I could still hear her voice, soft and close. "Come back inside. It's not finished yet." I backed away from the bookshelf, my palms sweaty, eyes darting from one mirror to the next. Each one showed something different now. Not echoes, but layers. Me sleeping on a red couch. Me walking down a hall I'd never seen before. Me kneeling, shirtless, whispering something to someone unseen. I pressed my fingers to my temples. Focus. Her voice had stopped. That was worse than when I could hear it. Silence clung to the walls like fog. I turned in slow circles, searching for her, for anything familiar. My own breathing sounded foreign, offbeat, not matching my chest. Then one mirror shivered. Not cracked. It rippled, like water. I stepped forward, drawn to it. Inside, I saw a staircase. My body moved without me. I reached toward it, fingertips brushing the glass, and it felt warm. Wet? I yanked my hand back. A smear of color stuck to my skin, deep plum, like lipstick. Her lipstick. My mouth went dry. I turned to run, but the room was rearranged. The chaise was gone. So was the door. Just walls. Just mirrors. I screamed her name. Whatever it was, no answer. Just my reflection, now mouthing words I couldn't hear. Something moved in the glass. A flash, not a reflection, but a figure behind me. I spun around. No one. I looked back. The mirror showed her standing there. But her face was stretched. Lips to wide, eyes to close together. She reached for me. I couldn't breathe. My body locked, chest tight, pulse pounding in my ears. I slammed my fist against the frame. The glass didn't break. It didn't even shake. Just kept showing her. Every mirror in the room lit up with her twisted face, whispering, grinning, repeating that name, the one that wasn't mine. I dropped to my knees, begged. I think I screamed. I'm not sure. My memory fractures here. All I recall is crawling toward a wall, praying for an edge, a crack, anything. The mirrors flickered like TV static. All of them showed different versions of me, dying, laughing, running. One of them showed me asleep, curled up in that same room, as if I'd never left. Then quiet, a sharp sound. Glass finally cracking. I turned. Just one mirror split, down the middle, and through the crack, I saw my apartment. My bed. Normal. Safe. I shoved my arm through. It burned. Sliding through the crack. It felt like tearing something real. I rolled onto my bedroom floor, gasping. Same furniture, same air. But the mirrors were different now. Just one, above the dresser. I crawled toward it like a survivor. My reflection looked normal at first, but then, barely perceptible. It blinked before I did. Just once. I stood, watched it silently, waiting for another twitch, another delay. Nothing. I convinced myself it was stress. Hallucination. That room had gotten into my head. But when I grabbed my phone to call someone, anyone, I saw a single message. No sender. Just a timestamp. 8:46 p.m. The exact time I had entered her building. The message read, "Still watching. We remember the real you?" I turned the mirror to face the wall, covered it with a blanket, but I haven't thrown it out. Part of me can't. I sleep with the lights on now, and I don't take private gigs anymore. Beacon Hill ruined that, but I still wonder, what if there are other rooms like that, other mirrors, other names? I don't remember being called. If you've ever looked into a mirror and seen it blink when you didn't, I need you to comment, please. I need to know I'm not the only one.